The views and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
So I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of the Nova Society. I'm Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we will be discussing the aftermath of the 2024 presidential election, responding to listener emails and concerns, what we got wrong, what happened, the appointment that President-elect Trump has made, what may be happening with his New York so-called hush money trial, and more. So we welcome all our listeners back, and we will be here as second Trump administration is inaugurated and 2025 moves forward. So, Mark, Scott, where would you like to begin? What about this potential board of generals board, retired generals board that Trump wants to fire all the woke generals and then call?
Well, that's what Peter Hegseth has said, right? Is that you have to get rid of anybody who's woke, which is ridiculous. You know what? I'm so sick and tired of these people who are saying, well, you're always talking about trans people. The only place you see that is on Fox News. I guarantee you tune into MSNBC or CNN or something like that, and you're not going to see a whole lot about that issue. That issue is a manufactured issue that is only on Fox News. Nobody else really cares. There were 3 trans athletes in Nebraska when they decided to make a law about trans athletes, and 2 of them graduated before the law could even be voted on. So it is just not something that happens. It is something that, they get these people upset going back to the mosque at the World Trade Center and all that kind of stuff. They get people worked up on these issues, and they're all just made up issues. They don't affect enough people to be important, yet they become the more important thing. And if you're voting because you don't want men going into girls' bathrooms or something like that, that's why you're voting. Come on, man. You're not a serious person if that's true. You've never been on an airplane where everybody shares a bathroom. You've never been to a ball game or a concert where there's porta-johns, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it just they're not making any sense. It's these made up issues are just so stupid. And I somebody brought that up the other day to me, and I was like, it's like a rounding error in all the things that we have to deal with in this country. We have serious issues, and you're bringing up trans people and sports. Come on, you can't be voting on that.
No, and again, I always say here in the neighborhood, somebody will come over and say, well, everybody knew Trump couldn't get a fair election in New York. That's why he's not a 34-time convicted felon. And everybody said that he couldn't get a fair trial. I said, no, I can tell you listen to Fox News, because it was only Fox News, Newsmax, and OAN that said that. You never heard that on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, PBS, CBS, BBC, or any of the other. The only place you hear that is Fox News. That's where you heard it. So that's where you get your information from. And it's, Scott is correct in the sense that these people are voting on things that just don't exist. Nobody is eating dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio. Can we just agree on that? Nobody is doing that. There's so many conspiracy things out there. And the fear that I run into is that the left, in an attempt to combat the right's craziness, goes off and becomes crazy themselves, just in a different direction. And the right is going to be doing all these things. There's certain things they can do. There's certain things they can't. The system hopefully holds. If it doesn't, I guess it's all just basically a moot point. But the fact is the system should hold just fine. And I just got news that Senator John Thune from South Dakota will be the next leader of in the Senate. So he is going to be replacing Mitch McConnell. He beat out, and here's another beauty, he beat out John Cornyn from Texas 29-24 in the vote. So
and what about Scott? What about Rick Scott? Wasn't Rick Scott was Trump's pick for this?
Yeah, but he doesn't say that he was even. It doesn't even say that he was even considered. So I don't know. Nothing's mentioned about Rick Scott.
Okay, that's good. But, and again, once again, it's not a person I agree with on a whole lot of stuff, but he's a normal human being. Thune. He's not one of these crazy people. So I guess that's okay. Whew.
Yeah, Mark, I hope that you're right. I mean, I do, as you know, I tend to get extremely anxious and paranoid and alarmist. I've always been like this. I do understand, I believe it's from Eye on the Right Democracy Docket, that not only Steve Bannon, but somebody else whose name I cannot remember has said, well, now that the election is over, we can state publicly that Project 2025 is the agenda. And my concern also is that when these projects that they have going, or they want to implement, the Trump administration, I mean by they, mass deportation, this and that, when those fail, it will be the enemy within who is responsible for having destroyed them. It will be the leftist, Marxist, radical elites. It will be this, it will be that, but it will be the enemy within.
Well, and again, Brooke, I understand that argument. I get it, but I'm going to tell you right now, the Republicans control the White House, they control the Senate, and they control the House of Representatives.
I know, but they'll have to find someone else to blame for that.
You can blame whoever you want. The fact is you're in power. You're totally in power right now.
I know, but they will not accept any blame. They'll find somebody else to blame. And it will be the radical left elite who are not in power and have absolutely no electoral voting power or say or anything like that. It will be some kind of conspiracy. It will be some kind of something, but it will not be the administration's fault, and it will not be anybody who is in power's fault. That's what concerns me.
But that goes back to the same thing. When the election results were coming in and Trump was losing in Pennsylvania, he said they're cheating in Pennsylvania until he was winning. Oh, now they're not cheating. I mean, that's fifth grade stuff. I mean, that just is fifth grade stuff. Granted, and a friend of mine sent me this. It says the United States just took a combined IQ test and failed miserably. And, okay, well, now you've got what you asked for. And the only thing we can do is, are they going to try to blame everybody? They're going to blame dogs and, that Kristi Noem didn't shoot. There's all sorts of things they're going to blame. Heck, they could blame the man on the moon or little green men or the lizard people or whoever. They'll blame them. We already know that playbook. Same playbook of if I lost, they must have cheated. Again, fifth grade. That's what a fifth grader says. I lost the game because the other side didn't cheat, not because they were better than me. All right, well, you won now. So you can't say it was cheating. I don't think we're going to see anything on January 6th at the Capitol. I don't think that's going to happen. People are going to accept it. One of the tenets of democracy is you have to be prepared to lose. This group is not prepared for that. Now, you're in power. Let's see what you do. And to those that voted, to those little, MAGA people that run around with Trump sneakers on and spend a carload of money on all the Trump swag, but sit around and cry that, they don't have as much money as they did before. Maybe if you didn't spend it $300 on a pair of sneakers that are crap, maybe you wouldn't have this problem. But the fact is that, now, all right, here's your time. Give them their time. Here's your time. Let's sit back, let's watch, and let's just enjoy the show. And another great thing that was put in there was just because you put a clown in a palace doesn't make the clown king. It makes the palace a circus. And I think what we're going to be seeing here is this is going to be a circus. Now, are we smart enough to know it's a circus? But the general population? Obviously not. Unless it impacts them. So when those gas prices don't come down, now what are they going to say? When the price of eggs, because there is no special button on the Resolute desk that controls the price of bacon and eggs, now what do you say? So again, you've got to sit back and you got to watch and see what happens. We're stuck with it for 4 years. Well, actually, we're stuck with it for 2 years. Let's keep that in mind. We're stuck with it for 2 years. There's another election. The entire House of Representatives comes up in 2 years. Right. I think it is 16 Senate seats come up. I could be totally wrong on that one. I have to look that up. 16 Senate seats, I think, come up in 2 years. Maybe the country comes to a senses. Maybe we get out of the fog that we're in. And maybe. if we do, let's remember there are limitations to what the executive branch can do no matter what, according to the Constitution. So unless we dump the Constitution, we should be fine. Yes, and I hope so, Mark. I really do. I hope that you're right. I'm waiting for it's the enemies within and they're the more dangerous people and we have to get rid of them and all that. That's what I'm waiting for.
Well, I guess we'll know that when we see who the Attorney General is.
That'll be interesting, yes. So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, who is our editing partner, and Podkite, who does all of our analytics. We'd also like to thank iHeart Radio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source for music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all these and other quality platforms mentioned in our description. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, a question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershwer, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.